Here is what Carlton says to Will with the new clothes, the tuxedo. Well, at least when we come down the stairs, we might not look alike, but wearing these suits, they'll sure know we're brothers. And you know the sarcastic remark. The point in all that is this, is when people see Christ and they see you, there ought not be no difference. Because you got the same daddy. Come on, talk to me. Are you with me? Come on, I want y'all to hear me. Because if we're in the family of God, when they encounter Christ, they ought to encounter you, because we're both made in the image of God. And if the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead is alive in you, he who raised Jesus from the dead is also going to give life to your mortal body through his spirit who lives where? In you. So when they see you, they ought to see Jesus, because you're brothers. The problem, though, while I'm still on the first point, we want access to the stuff, but we don't want the whoopings that goes along with getting it. And so we follow Jesus, or God, only because of what he has and what he can do. And when it gets rough, we want to holler, where is God? Why this? Why all of that? Oh, we want to get to glory, but we don't want the suffering. Now, to me, this is the fallacy of a lot of the teachings we hear as it relates to prosperity. Sicknesses of the devil. Here's what we hear. Diseases of the devil. Brokenesses of the devil. All this kind of stuff is of the devil. Suffering is not of God. I think when I read that text and I look at the life of Christ, I saw him suffering greatly so that I can have access to God. And I think the connection that's being made is that as a believer in Christ, there is going to be a level of suffering. And because we suffer, it does not mean that God is not with us in the suffering. Are you with me? We are going to get to glory, but the path to glory can be low at times, in that we must humble ourselves, and we are going to go through some things. Here's the good news. In going through the things that we have to go through in life, it does not mean that we're no longer sons and daughters of God. So he says it this way, lo, I am with you always, even until the end of the earth. Turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, you're gonna have to go through some things. The little thing we go through on earth is nothing in comparison to what God has for us when we get in his presence. Let me say it this way. A lot of us say, God, deliver me from this. God, provide that. If I only had $1 million, I would be the happiest person on the face of the earth. If I only had 2 million, and I'm standing in front of you to say to you, no amount of resources, no amount of anything on the face of the earth can compare to the glory that God has in store for us when we get into the presence of God. Come on, does anybody believe that this morning? You don't believe me, just check into those professional athletes that had the millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, and then they lost, or some debilitating injury happens, and look at them now. And matter of fact, just take a quick visit into Hollywood, into all the fortune and fame that exists there. Yet and still, in spite of all of those resources, people are still committing suicide because they realize no amount of resources on earth can compare or bring true happiness. Paul says, listen, we're here on the earth realm, and I'm going to say some things in a little while. And even if you got delivered from whatever it is you're going through on the earth realm, it doesn't compare to what God has. It does not compare to what God has for us when we get to glory.